Hello and welcome back to the ATMA podcast. My name is Brian, and we give you the tips, tools, and strategies you need to be successful here at Advent Trinity. We've got some special guests here with us today. They're back with vengeance from their last episodes, talking about Gen Z marketing, and it's funny that I'm like being humorous today because they're going to be talking about Gen Z. They got the side eye and everything with me today. Okay, so they're going to be talking about the humor of Gen Z, and I'm going to tell you right now, for those listening, please pray with me because this is going to be a struggle for me to get through this episode, understanding their humor here. So, we're going to be talking about humor. We're also going to be talking about captivating storytelling, which, actually storytelling is not even a Gen Z thing, but it's actually kind of a generation to generation thing. But we're going to be talking about a little bit of that. And so before we get started, though, Ivy and Bree, go ahead and introduce yourselves again to the audience. Say hello to everybody and let us know, what today's topic is all about.
Hi, I'm Ivy. I'm a junior in high school and an intern for ATMA.
And I'm Bree, and I'm a content writing intern here at ATMA, and I'm also a student at the University of Texas at Austin.
I like how she plugs that in every single time.
I'm proud of it. Hook 'em.
Yeah, let's not talk about where I went to college and what happened to my education. But so anyways, I'm just gonna say that C students rule the world. Anyways, let's move on to let's talk about captivating storytelling, and just so that you guys know that who are listening online, and the interns Ivy and Bree actually put these episodes together. I am just asking the question. So what made you guys want to talk about captivating storytelling today?
So captivating storytelling is something that I believe really can intrigue Gen Z if done the right way. It's kind of a very specific process on how you present your story and what you do while you're presenting your story in order to capture your audience. But I think it's a great way to really reach out to Gen Z.
Yes, I think it's very lighthearted, humorous, and casual. It's just like having a conversation with your friends. So it isn't anything that is, super formal, or you are really trying to push a product onto us, but you don't have anything relatable. We love something relatable. We also love things that are nostalgic. So stuff that reminds us of our childhood, or something that has a pop culture reference to it, that captivates us, I believe. At least for me, it really captivates me.
So it's funny you say, I was listening to you guys, nostalgic, we all know what's going on with Netflix and going back to the 80s. And, if you listen to The Weeknd today, there's a lot of 80s references. Like, you guys are like super 80s, 90s, and starting to get into my generation, which is 2K, right? My childhood generation. Like, what is it with you guys and wanting to be a part of that nostalgic experience?
I always thought it was just, since we are the first digital age, it's like we grew too fast in a sense, past episodes we talked about augmented reality and stuff like that, and AI, and technology is just continually rapidly changing and advancing. And so I think when we are reminiscing on certain things where it was just really simple, it was TV ads and we're just playing, and it wasn't complicated with a lot of digital where we're stuck to our phones every single day. I just think we kind of long for that kind of feeling again,
And to go off of that, most of Gen Z was born in the 2000s. So Gen Z is about 1997 to 2009. And so we're, 2000s kids and everything, and we don't know what it's like to live in the previous century. And I blame it a bit on millennials and the previous generation, because they always talk about, growing up in the 90s or being born in the 90s or the 80s and how great it was and how easy life was. And I think we're longing for that feeling of simplicity, really.
Yeah. You hear that, everybody? It's apparently all the millennials' fault. So, this is a great topic. Well, getting back to the notes here on the captivating storytelling, which is funny you guys tell me this. You use storytelling, right? And in the last few episodes, we talked about your attention span. So tell me how in the heck we're going to be able to do storytelling when your attention span is like less than a second.
Yeah, so back to a few episodes back, we talked about GRWM. Do you remember what that means, Brian? So that stands for Get Ready With Me, and I talked about how that was a trend that really blew up about, like, I believe last year or so.
Yes.
And so basically when people get ready with me, when they do those kind of content and stuff like that, they do stories, right? So it could be somebody getting ready for something, doing their makeup, finding an outfit for something, and then they'll tell probably the most obscene story you'll ever hear in your life.
They will. And I think a lot of it has to do with the visual component to that. So they're not just, reading off of a script or just staring at the camera and telling you a story. They're doing something else, something that you can watch that you might find entertaining. So I think as Gen Z, we love visuals, and to have that component with your storytelling helps tremendously.
Awesome. So you've got storytelling. So they're telling us we have hope in us who like to do storytelling. There is a way to captivate your attention. We just got to do it strategically. Now let's talk. I'm kind of on the fence of talking about this. Is your humor? Like, what are we going to be talking about with humor? Like, what is your sense of humor? I guess in your generation.
It's very, very, very dark. I mean, I would like to say that we're probably definitely one of the most judgy generations out there. And I mean, we just have no filter. I don't know if that was tied to what the digital age is right now and how we can literally hide behind a screen and say whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't met a single person who is not afraid to say anything if necessary.
Right. So you guys have no filter. That's okay though. We don't have a filter.
Yeah.
So no filter. What is dark? I mean, dark could mean all kinds of stuff.
Oh man. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Well, we are a Christian-based company, so I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, dark could go into bringing up very
extreme topics.
Yeah. I mean,
they're nervous talking about their dark humor. Like, what is going on?
I mean, I could just say historical events that were probably very tragic. I don't want to say exactly. I'm sure people can connect the dots, but a lot of things are tied to that. People think about certain historical events or things that were probably very tragic, and they'll make a meme about it.
Yeah, or certain emotional states that are very dark and
Yeah.
very, not great, but people make light of that in humor, I suppose. And that's a big thing in our generation, is to, take something that could be really tragic or extreme. And I'm not sure if this is entirely appropriate, but make fun of it or, turn it into a more positive situation perhaps. And memes are a big thing. And if you don't know what memes are, they're like a image, a text, or a video that are usually humorous, and they go viral on the internet very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like the definition of memes, the difference between Gen Z and millennials is extremely different.
It's really is.
I think for all the millennials that I've, texted and, have had contact with, their memes are very, very, very much
cheesy, I feel like.
Yeah. Chuggy is the word.
Yes, that's a word for
us millennials are cheesy. Like we
Yeah.
are.
Yes.
We grew up with the cheese man himself. The Cheetos.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of memes that I see millennial use are I think they're called GIFs.
Yes.
Yeah, it's those GIFs from animated or they're just from movies, and then it's a caption. They're like, "Oh, that's so funny!" Oh my gosh, it's a cat doing something stupid. That's so funny with a caption on it. But for us, it's it's just very, very dark and tragic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm lost here. So you have so we do send, because I'm a millennial, right? And I do send memes. Now I'm gonna call them memes with quotation now, because apparently they're not memes to Gen Z. So half my staff is millennials. Okay, so we send memes that relate to different TV shows. So you're saying you guys use memes from different historical times? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I mean, I would like to call it a trauma dump.
Yes.
Gen Z.
That's a good word.
A trauma dump.
Yes. So I've said this in the past few episodes. I'd like to say that we're kind of emotionally intelligent when it comes to certain things, but when it comes to trauma, it's free ball. It's people would make TikToks talking about how somebody in their family died very tragically, and they'll make a video on it, and it would be probably I wish I could show you it. and like really show you how messed up our humor is because it's bad.
It's really bad.
So here's a topic, because now, so we've got, this is actually a great topic, because us being marketers, we deal with social media, we deal with Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Okay, you guys are talking about this dark humor, so let's get a little bit serious, right? How do you guys think that's affecting your generation in mental health?
Mental health, I do believe is a big thing in our generation.
It is.
I feel like, I don't want to put the whole blame, but I feel like a big part of it is being able to have a grasp of social media at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people who have been having social media probably since they were like 8 or 9. I personally have it since I was 10, which is still a really young age. And
hold on a second. Does your dad know that you had it at 10?
So I know this is a podcast, guys, but
the truth
maybe we should tell my dad about this. But yeah, I think the first ever social media I had, I think, was Musical.ly, and Snapchat. And so, I mean, back then it was still very lighthearted, and a lot of our generation was still young, so it wasn't as bad then. But I definitely think that when I get older and I have, kids of my own, I wouldn't let them have social media at such a young age, because it's a very easy platform to get twisted in.
Well, here's that. So now, should we get into that? Because this is a great topic, right? This is great content as far as people listening. And there's going to be some bias. There's going to be a lot of comments on this, right? But do you believe that now you guys are Gen Z, right? You guys have been honestly brainwashed because you've gotten to social media so easily and so young. Do you believe there does need to be some restrictions on who can access these social media accounts?
So
well, it doesn't, if it has to do with me, I don't need restrictions.
I think that younger kids shouldn't be on TikTok, and a lot of parents, I think they kind of use phones as safety nets now, because kids, they're not going to be as annoying. If they're occupied with something that intrigues them and they're able to interact with, it's something that keeps them quiet. And I mean, I don't know a single parent who wouldn't want that, right? And so I think they just have to embrace that kids are going to be kids, and not to give them something just so, just so they're quiet, just so it makes your life easier. Yes, it does. But I feel like the long run, when it does to mental health, is something that is worrisome.
Honestly, I know people who have to take social media cleanses. Like, they have to delete all their social media and everything because it's just so bad for their mental health. It can be really a coin flip, because there's so much good content on social media. Very helpful, very creative, things that can actually be useful in your life. But there's also a side of it that is horrible and honestly very toxic. And so you have to be very careful with that. And with children, I feel like it's not as easy to discern between the two. And so if they do have social media in any way, I feel like it would need to be parent monitored for sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like they can have really fun content on there that they can watch. It's entertaining, can be informative. But I feel like it does take a toll on mental health, especially when you're that young and impressionable. It can seriously affect you in a negative way.
Yeah, but I also think that, like, especially when your kids get older, just to respect some of their privacy a bit. I mean, it's like, it's such a cliche. It's such a cliche to say that. But I also believe where it's like you tower over your kids so much, then it's like, what do they do when they're on their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have to release the leash sometime. And I agree, though, because social media, it's a hard place to be in when you're not in the right mental space. I think if you are going to be in social media, you have to be in the right mental space. And it might not be something that's just happening, right? Like somebody's like, oh, like online bullying, right? Like that's a thing. But I mean, I know for some girls, I mean, they're like on Instagram and they'll see the Instagram models, and then like they'll be like, oh, like why don't I look like that? And then it turns into something that they create in their own head because they're not in the right mental space.
For sure. I did a whole paper over that actually for an assignment at school over Instagram models and how it affects mental health in young girls particularly. And it was really interesting, very insightful, because almost all of the photos on Instagram, I believe I had a study on there, like 90% of them or so are photoshopped in some way, especially with beauty filters. And that creates, these standards for young girls. Like, why don't I look like that? I need to be doing what she does. And then when they can't obtain that, they become very upset and with themselves and with their image. So I feel like there is a lot of possibility for social media to cause harm, but it doesn't always cause harm. It can be a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that brings up another good point, which I do want to talk about in our next episode, though, because I think this topic can actually go into multi episodes, and I want to talk about in our next episode. You know, you guys talked about the dark. You know, we talk. It's funny because we talked about this is their humor. They said that it was dark. You know, so we talked about some dark side of social media. And we talked a little bit about the mental health, but I want to talk about in the next episode, which I will talk a little bit more on too as well, is how to flip the script when you're a business owner and using social media. There are a lot of people, right, that they look at social media and they're intimidated because they're dealing with Gen Zers who judge, you know, and so you know, they're intimidated and they're like, well, these models, listen, so we're also going to go back to the script of all these other episodes, the Be Real, and we'll talk about that in our next episode too, because basically after listening to you ladies and understanding what you guys are looking for, right, I think I've hit it on the nail, but I don't want to put all my cards on the table today in this episode. So this is what we're going to do. You know, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we're super excited to continue this conversation of Gen Z and going from humor to then going into, hey, not being fearing of being in front of you ladies. So, you know, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys in the next episode. My name is Brian, and we will see you next time.